anime is filled with tons of stories of adolescents, of the young boys and girls, and their stories of their lives at that point. Whether it's in sci-fi or it's horror, magic, whatever it may be. That's always filled with their point of view and how they what they learn from these experiences, and ultimately shape of how they're going to be when they grow up. And we're talking about this. The one that's mentioned the most, or probably has the biggest fan base, is FLCL. And it's so popular that even after almost 20 years since its last episode aired, that they announced not one but 2 sequel animes to the original one, which is unheard of. You don't ever hear that. And we finally finished the 3rd season and final season, I'm assuming, of FLCL, which is FLCL Alternative. And so I want to go and talk about this particular season, the ending, and how it compared to the original. So this is Dave the Smash Fan from Chibi Podcast, and let's get into it.
Hey guys, this is Vic Mignogna, Edward Elric from Full Metal Alchemist, and you're listening to Chibi Podcast.
So in the final season of FLCL Alternative, in the FLCL series, it focuses on a group of girls, which is very different than the first 2 sequels, because in the first one it focused on Naota, and on the second one it focused on Hidomi, but this one it focuses primarily on Kana, but also has her 3 friends. You have Pets, you have Hijiri, and Mosan, and of course you have Haruko there being who she is in the series. And each one of them had they each have a different obstacle or perspective, or a way of thinking that is stopping them from developing. And in Kana's case, it had to deal with everyone that was around her, that was very close to her. And I think they did it in a very great way, because this series, or this season, was structured in a way that each character in this 4-person group had a episode dedicated to them, and it reflected of where they were, of how they're growing, but also was showing what was Kana's fault in all this. And in the first few episodes, you don't really get that sense that that's what's going on. It's not until episode 5 that it really hits it hard, and it's arguably the best episode that is in that season. And it's funny because it rings all the bells of what FLCL is, which is about growing up, and this one makes it seem like it's the last one, the way that it ends. And we'll get back to the ending a little bit. But the main message in the 3rd season was that things can't stay the same. There's a little Easter egg that happens in the first episode with Kana, where she's holding a Jenga piece, and on it says "Never Knows Best." And if you remember, back in the original FLCL, you had Mamimi, who would smoke, and she would always have that saying, or she had the saying on the cigarette that said "Never Knows Best." What's interesting is that if you read the DVD commentary of the original FLCL series, you find out that there wasn't really a deep meaning to it. I believe they said that they had the idea, they didn't even remember. They thought it was like, oh, I think I had found it on a song, or it was on my cigarette, something that made me want to put some random saying or whatever. So it's funny that it is probably talked a lot about what it means, why Mamimi has that "Never Knows Best," and in actuality there was no deep meaning behind it. It's just a little thing that the creators wanted to put in. But what's interesting is that with Kana, I don't know if they were thinking about it, but her thing of "Never Knows Best" fits her character in such a perfect way, because all throughout the series, all throughout the season, and again going into the ending, you get this sense that she is not understanding her friends, and how they're progressing, because you find out that she was always butting into their lives. With Hijiri, it was with her boyfriend. With Mosan, it was with her, her fashion goals that she had, and with Pets, trying to reconnect with her in episode 5, and you find out that she has all these insecurities, of course, because it's anime and it's fully coolly, and her insecurity was that she was always alone until she met Pets, who was her first friend. And she comes out and she says, I did this, I wanted to do all this stuff because I was selfish. I wanted to be loved. I was afraid of not being loved. And this comes full circle at the end of the 6th episode, where she says, I don't care anymore if I'm loved. And so she's kind of letting go of her insecurities and taking a step forward. And the ending of Alternative is where it gets a little bit weird. But again, I'll go back to this a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about her friends, because and of Haruko and how she fits in all this. Her friends are it probably has the best supporting cast out of all 3 seasons, in my opinion, because they each get these episodes to have them, to see them progress and develop, and they stick to that. They don't progress in one episode and the next episode they're the same as ever, and they also put in real life scenarios and consequences. Going to episode 5, with Pets, there's this, not necessarily falling out, but the whole storyline is that she's been picked because of her being, in the higher rich class, that she's going to go to Mars, and is not saying anything to anyone. And Kana is wanting to understand why, and basically that's when Pets hits her hard with you don't know anything, being selfish and all this stuff. And you see Pets leave, never saying goodbye, because Kana is on the ground unconscious, and it's never resolved. And some people are like, well, that's stupid, they should have tied that up. Well, I like it because, again, this is what happens in life. There is sometimes when friendships never have closure, and you just have to go on living despite wanting to have that closure. And putting in those real life, like I said, scenarios is something that I think Fully Coolly with the 2nd and 3rd season were able to do it in a great way. And without when we're talking about Fully Coolly, we always have to mention Haruka. So she also went through a huge change as well. And if you see in the 1st season, again, she is basically, what's the word? She is obsessed. She's obsessed in trying to find Adamus and trying to obtain him, to be with him. And you see that happen in the first one with Naoto. You see in the second one. And the second one is where it's where she has more focus on her development with Adamus, and with the whole thing with Jinyu, who is basically her other half. And she gets this whole realization that she can't contain Adamus. She can't put him down, to be, for the lack of it, or shackled with her. He needs to have that freedom, and that's why he doesn't want to be tied down to anything. And Jinyu gets this, says we're one and the same, but I'm the part where that you need to love yourself first. And you see this development in Haruko and accepting that fact. And then in the 3rd season, you see her, Jinyu's not in there, first of all, and there's kind of debates on whether the 3rd season is a prequel or a sequel timeline wise, because she's not obsessed. She's not looking for Adamus at all. Jinyu is not there. She has a different hairstyle, which they just changed. I think I remember she was working with the Galactic Police or something like that, and she's not as antagonizing as she was before. She does she does do a lot of stuff. I mean, she makes out with Sasaki, who Kana likes, and also takes Hichiri's boyfriend for a bit. Like, so she does antagonize a little bit, but not to the extent that she did in the first 2 seasons. And she plays a more of a she kind of takes a step back in this season, only pushing when it needs to be done, and not for her own selfish desires. At least that's what I saw in Alternative. And having everyone have their time in the spotlight was just what I think was done very well. In terms of the ending, which I mean I've talked about spoilers all throughout, but I'm gonna go more into spoilers. The ending of this was kind of odd. It wasn't sad. It wasn't happy. It just felt unfinished, which again it kind of goes with the whole theme of what Alternative was trying to say, where Kana, using her NO portal, she basically stops Medical Mechanica from flattening the Earth, like literally like ironing out the Earth, like sucks it in and then pulls like this planet out of the portal and then transports everyone there, and then life starts again, like nothing ever changed, which is funny because the whole thing is about her like letting go of that, like things have to change, it's inevitable, we can't stop it, we can't stay the same. But yet that's how it ends, with her getting ready for school. I guess the only difference was that her hairpin is now the one that Pets gave her, but other than that it looks like everything else is the same. So it's kind of an odd ending, and I don't know how I actually feel about it. Like I looked at it and I was like, that's it? I was like, there's no closure. But again, I think it's ringing the same bells as before, that you don't need to have closure. Like, life just keeps going on, and although maybe it looks the same, she's probably she is a different person at the end of the show. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, I actually did like it. Now that I actually think about it, it's actually a good ending. In terms of animation, I think they played it safe. The reason I say that is because when the original Fooly Cooly was out, they had so many different changes in animation style. They borrowed animation from shows that were at that time popular, like South Park. They did the whole manga thing, and it was more bizarre in the animation and the way that the characters expressed emotions. And in this one, it just didn't seem like that. I mean, I know Production IG was also involved in the original Fooly Cooly, but in this one without Gainax, it just seems that that extremity that Gainax has, or that Studio Trigger has now, it wasn't present in here, and you could feel it. And they try to put their own little spin into, like with Hidomi, like having her like blob form to just kind of say that she's not really part of the life that she wants to be, and she's just kind of going with life. So there were a few things like that, but overall, like it was pretty tame. Which I think it would hurt people who were expecting this bizarre animation style from these 2 seasons, and I think it stopped them from enjoying it as much. And there are sometimes dips in the quality in the show, in the art styles, but they did put a lot of their money into the fights, like the mecha fights, and into like the important parts of the show, which I wish they could have done that for all of it, because I mean each season was 6 episodes, so there wasn't a lot of, didn't have to do a lot of episodes that way, which had to be 6. But again, overall was the animation was okay. It wasn't, like I said, there wasn't anything eye popping. It wasn't a different art like Kill la Kill or Gurren Lagann. It was just looked like standard present day animation style. I would say that the thing that got me the most, though, that I loved, had to be the soundtrack. When Alternative and Progressive were first announced, we were told that the Pills would come back and do the soundtrack, and they did amazing. that the ending for progressive was Spiky Seeds, and for the alternative, oh freak, I just forgot it. I'll find it in a minute. But Star Overhead, that's what it's called, Star Overhead. And those were great songs. And and in the third season they put Last Dinosaur in there whenever there were big fights or some emotional part, and I was just I was fist bumping. I love that song. And I'm a huge music buff, and I love when they have great music that sets the tone. And the Pillows, they know how to do it. They know how to put that adolescent little flair into the anime. And this one, they even said we were writing and trying to see what exactly we could do to make Fooly Cooly, give it that Fooly Cooly type of sound. And specifically wrote for it, whereas before they're we'll just write what kind of, not whatever, but they weren't as invested as they were for season 2 and 3. So overall, I love that they did this. In terms of which one was better, I mean, I honestly think that the third season is probably the best one. And I know some people will be like, no, how could you say that? And I think it's just because they had so much time to write it and to make it cohesive. And the original one, if you remember, it was all OVAs. They weren't run in a consecutive time frame. One episode came out and the next one came out 3 or 4 months after. And so you had to rewatch all these episodes, to find out the cohesive story about it. But I think the third one did a great job. At least for me, it clicked more, of personal experience that I've had as well, and how I looked at things when I was that age. A little bit more than the original one. I honestly would see the original one probably more than the other two, but that could be just for nostalgia. And the third one, not to say the third one was bad, the third one was actually the one that had the most closure out of all of them, which I really liked. And I really liked Hidome, and I really liked Ide and their whole love story, because you didn't get that in the first you got that a little bit in the first series with Naota and Haruko, but the central point and the ending epilogue of season 2 was that whole relationship and then pushing forward. And then in the third one, you didn't get. You got the whole thing with Sasaki and her whole thing of not wanting to, or saying that she's not ready to be in a relationship or ready to be in love. Which, again, I think they were kind of implying she's wanting everything to stay the same, and if she takes this step to be with this guy, that everything's going to change. She didn't want that. At least that's what I think. I think all these stops of hers, especially with love, was that she doesn't want to change anything. She wants everything to stay the same. But overall, I think I give each of them a 9 out of 10. They were done very well. Granted, they had their faults in it, and the ending is going to be decisive. The ending of the third one, because it's supposed to be the last one, and the way that and where it stays in the timeline is very different. So, like I said, people thought it's a prequel because Haruko doesn't get her Vespa until the very end, and at the very end you see these images and scenes from the original Fooly Cooly, which again you don't know why she sees that, and it looks more like the Vespa was reminiscing or showing what it's gone through. But people could argue that it's something different. That it is a prequel, because so and so reason. I don't think so, just because of where Haruko is, what she stated she's been doing, and that we know that for a fact that she's been hunting, at least from the first season, she was hunting Adamus for a long time, and it doesn't seem like she's been doing that at all in the third season, which again to me shows that this is a sequel and the last one in the timeline, because she has come to understand that she doesn't need Adamus, and now she's just visiting Earth because she likes it and doesn't want Medical Mechanic to get what they want. But yeah, let me know what you think about Fooly Cooly Progressive and Alternative. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't, if you want to discuss something more about it. Let us know in the comments section. Thanks so much for listening. Please follow us on our social media at facebook.com, at Chibino Podcast, at Twitter, at Chibino Podcast, capital C, capital N, capital P, and follow our podcast episodes at podomatic.com/Chibino Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. This is David the Smash Fan, and this is Chibino Podcast.